And welcome to Making Sense for this week. And it's a very important one because we are going to talk about what is a very important time of year, but it's a difficult conversation. We're going to talk savings and National Savings Month, but it's only focused on for one particular month. But I can already hear you groaning and going, Gareth, we don't have the money to save. We've got kids. Have you seen the fuel price recently? Electricity costs have gone up. Water has gone up. Just cost of living has gone up. But I'm going to try and debunk that today. But there's one other issue which is becoming more and more prominent and more serious, especially among the youngsters in South Africa. It's the issue of gambling. Listen to this, and I hope I get the stat right. If not, my esteemed guest will help me. South Africa's gambling market has reached approximately 1.5 trillion when it comes to wages of every single person every single year that is into gambling. It is a lot of money, and it's a risky way to spend your hard-earned cash. What I'd like to do is bring in to the show Tshepo Kgapane from Blackbullion SA. What a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I always watch you on TV, so being with you in studio is lovely.
Yeah, it's a lot more laid back in the podcast studio, so I'm not grilling you like a politician. So I just want you to take a moment and just explain to me, Blackbullion, what you do there, and why are you and I having this conversation today and now?
Yeah, so, we've built a platform to help young people build a relationship with their money. Almost a financial companion, so that as a young person, when you're faced with a money moment, you've got this financial companion to help you along that moment. So let's just say you're getting an allowance, you're getting a stipend. That's your first money moment. So what do you do with it? That's money moment number 2. Do I budget? Do I save? Do I invest? Perhaps there's pressure at home. And so we've just built a tool to help young people navigate that, navigate saving, navigate investing, navigate having conversations about money, but making it fun and engaging. So it's a beautiful tool. Just help young people build that relationship with their finances.
And I make sure before you leave today, you're going to tell us where we can get this tool and what people can do. Because on the point of talking about the money, we are so bad at this. And I speak from my own personal experience in previous romantic relationships with my parents. God bless them when they were still around. No one knew what I was doing with my money. And if I think back to 18-year-old Gareth, 20-year-old Gareth, who, let's be honest, is not earning much money at that time, you're still studying. If I'd made better choices then, things would be very, very different for everybody. But we don't like to talk about money. It's like talking about sex. But we just don't like to do it. Why don't we talk about money?
Because money is emotional and money is psychological. And I think even in some of our families, the only time we talk about money is the fact that we don't have it.
Yes.
So it's this big secret, and then you get a little bit old and you become very secretive around money. So I think we need to just debunk it and have the awkward conversations about saving and investing. But money is so emotional. It is so psychological. And I mean, you spoke about the issue of gambling. There's an element of psychology and an element of emotion, greed, thinking you're going to win it all. So money is so emotional, and that's what we don't talk about a lot.
When I was reading up about some of the work that you're doing at Blackbullion, yes, it is about greed. It is possibly about ego as well. But I want to maybe look at it from this perspective and tell me if you agree. It's also an element of desperation, because many students, and this is what we're going to be primarily talking about, young adults, they're using whatever little money they've got, stipends, wages. And we've done stories on ENCA using NSFAS money to gamble because they don't have enough to get themselves through the month, for example.
Yeah, I think there's two sides to it, Gareth. There's the side that says things are really bad financially for everybody. Things are super expensive. And then there's the other side to say, I've got this little income. Can I magically grow it?
Magically.
And so young people see gambling as a form of an income. They see it as a financial plan. And that's what we need to debunk, and that's what we need to change.
And part of this is, and again, this has been brought up in interviews I've done personally. I know Francis Hurd has done this here on this very podcast as well. The advertising, the marketing around gambling. I can't drive down the N1 highway on the way to work without seeing, and I'm not adding any spice here, I could think of right now 9, 10 gambling billboards. Never mind all the radio advertising around it. And that's targeting, arguably, young, impressionable, again, desperate young people who are now taking what should be savings and risking it, really.
100%. I mean, I was saying to my team the other day, I'm surprised I'm not dreaming about these adverts because I literally see them everywhere, and they're very enticing. You know, when things are really bad and you see this advertisement and you could potentially turn your 100 rand to 1,000 rand, it's really enticing when you look at the situation that we're in. But it's everywhere. It's on social media. It's people on TikTok. It's all over the show. It's everywhere, and that makes it a little bit more enticing for people. I think
it does make it more enticing. So let's get into the details then of the sort of research you've done and what the work is that you're doing, because you might have a small bet just once. You've never done this before. You might win 10 rand, 100 rand. But then I start seeing that the work you're looking into is the repeat gamblers, because you get one or two right, you get bigger, you get riskier with the money you don't have. Tell me about that.
So I think it's this idea that because it's 100 rand or it's 50 rand or it's 10 rand, I can ignore it. It doesn't matter. But the fact of the matter is that's how a habit is built. You know, over time, you're spending this money once a week, twice a week. Eventually it becomes a habit. And that's where the danger is for a lot of us. And you end up not actually realizing that the 10 rand, the 50 rand is actually 1,000 rand when you look at your bank statement and you put all these amounts together. And that's money that eats into your budget. It eats into the money that you use for transport, for accommodation, for rent, for all of those things. And I think that's where the danger is that just because it's small amounts, you think it's not important until you add it up.
And I want to do some basic maths here, far be it from me, from someone with a BA degree, to be doing anything maths-wise. But I see you also talk about the 100 rand. And that stands out for me because, to your point, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but when you're looking at 100 rand and for a young person, what that can mean in a year when done properly. Tell me about the 100 rand theory.
Yeah, so you look at $100, and I mean, if you save it throughout the year, that's 5,200 rand, and we're not talking about interest. And I'll be honest with you, Gareth, 5,200 rand is not going to change your entire life, but it gives you options.
How did we get to 5,200? Just help me with the maths here.
So 52 weeks in a year.
Oh, of course. Oh, 100 rand, 100 rand a week.
100 rand a week.
Okay, even I can do that. Thank you.
And to be honest, the 5,200 rand, it won't change your entire life, but it gives you options. What does it mean? It means an emergency fund. It means I can pay a little bit towards my studies. It means I can pay off a little bit of some debt. So it gives you options that you otherwise wouldn't have had. So I think part of it is also letting young people realize the future value of money. It may look like 100 rand now, but it can become so much more. And that's the conversation that we want to have with young people. Even if it's 1 rand, even if it's 10 rand, it can become so much more, but it starts with the 1 rand.
It starts with the 1 rand. Yeah. Because what this really is, and I'm not going to sit here on my soapbox and pretend I didn't do this when I was younger. I've gotten much better in my older years. I'm not that old, but thanks for thinking it. It's a lack of impulse control, really, because as you say, it's 10 rand, it's $100. But you keep doing that every week for a year. You've given away 5,000 odd rand. And where do we start trying to have conversations with young people about the importance of money? And as you said, this future proofing of your money, if they don't see it as important, but also all this advertising, it's impulse versus good financial decisions.
I think at the face of it, Gareth, is we need to put a face to money. We make money too scary, we make it too technical, we make it too broad, and we need to have young people themselves talk about money. And that's what we try to do with Blackbullion. We've got ambassadors that come and talk about money, talk about their experiences. So for us, we're focusing on the 100 rand because we know that's what most young people have in their hand. What can that really become? And I think having open, honest, transparent, even fun conversations around some of these things to really let the lesson land with them as well. I think that's the angle that we need to take.
How much of this do you think is peer pressure? I'm just thinking for a youngster these days who maybe has a friend who, for whatever reason, perhaps earns a little bit more money, even as a student. They've maybe got a side hustle or they've got a full-time job somewhere while studying. They're getting, if not a nice car, they've got a car, they've got transport, maybe renting somewhere. But me, I don't have as much money as my friend. There must be a peer pressure element to this as well, to at least appear like you're doing well, which is a very dangerous appearance to have.
I think it's two things. I think it's pressure from outside and pressure internally. So pressure from outside is the things that you're seeing, the things that people are saying. I mean, you go onto Instagram and you see people putting their bet slips and this person has turned 50 Rand into 50,000 Rand. But we don't see the losses, we see the wins.
Yes.
And you don't know how much did they lose to actually get to this.
You also don't even know if it's true.
100%.
How do you prove that?
This is social media. Anything can sort of happen in these spaces. And then I think there's that internal pressure as a young person where you're saying the stipend and allowance, it's just not stretching. It's not stretching.
And I had a friend years ago who will remain nameless for the sake of our current friendship, who was adamant. He'd convinced even me back in the day, and I've always been a bit of a skeptic. I would say he had a gambling problem, especially when the online gambling came out in the early, what must have been maybe 2000s, maybe thereabouts. And he's adamant to this day that he made more money gambling than he lost. I mean, there's no way for me to know that, but you talk to a lot of gambling addicts later in life, and they seem to, in many cases, hold that line. My reason for asking this is, how do you help and assist a youngster who believes that they're doing so well with the gambling? Yes, there's maybe some money that they lose versus consistently saving. So what I'm asking is, consistently gambling, which they claim makes more money, or consistently saving? That's a difficult one to try and change the narrative, isn't it?
100%. And I think the test is very simple. Download your bank statement and highlight all the transactions that went to betting. How much went out and how much went in. That's an easy exercise to do. And then the second thing to say is, in the weeks where I've lost money, was I still okay that week? Was I able to get through the week? Because if you were not able to get through the week and something changed, then that's money you were not able to lose. So already those two tests should tell you exactly where you are. And then we look at the flip side and say, but if this 100 Rand is in an account for a year and it now becomes the 5,200, what options does that give me? That gives you control.
Yeah.
That gives you power. While on the other side, you're gambling and you have no control and no power. You don't know where your money is going to go. So you almost need to make a decision as a young person. Do I take action and control my finances by saving, which is what I can control? Or do I put my money into this game and I don't know where it's going to go and I chance it? And the chance it, 9 out of 10 times you will lose.
I'm going to ask the question as straightforward as I can, because I think there's no way of sugarcoating this. The problem is saving isn't very sexy. It's not sexy. And because no one can see you doing it. It's sort of a internal hustle, which many will say is a sign of pure confidence and stoicism and all that. But we are growing up in a generation where you want people to see what you're doing, and no one looks at your savings account. What they see is the car that you bought from the gambling. It's not sexy. How do we make it something that youngsters want to do, instead of saying gambling's bad, don't do that? How do we get savings onto that same sort of appeal level?
Yeah, I love that question. And I think we want to break it down by explaining what is savings, because I think a lot of people don't know and a lot of people get it confused. You save with the intention to spend. Okay. Sounds crazy. You save with the intention to spend, but you're putting your money into something because at some point in time you're going to use it. So you're saving towards a holiday. You're saving towards paying off debts. You're saving towards an emergency fund. What is the end goal? Keep the end goal in mind, the picture in mind, and know that this money that I'm putting in right now, at some point in time, I'm going to spend it. What's the end goal? Visualize the end goal. So let's just say the end goal is, I want to have a deposit for a vehicle. Go into a dealership and just sit in a car. They're not gonna say leave, but visualize that element.
Touch it, feel
it. An emergency is an example. Imagine the last time you had an emergency and you had no money. You visualized it.
Like a medical emergency,
100%.
or you're stuck on the side of the road.
100%. Okay. So I think that idea of visualizing what this goal is really important, but also understanding what the saving is for. You save with the intention to spend, and the spending is what you decide. Is it something good? Is it something positive? Fantastic. But visualize what that thing is.
One of the other things that I think many people, and even older, don't quite understand is they think, well, let me put my 100 Rand a week into a savings account, because we should have been taught this at school. At least it wasn't when I was at school. Financial growth. Yeah. No one understands how an equity works. No one understands how a 30-day savings account works when you get that interest. So you're talking this 100 Rand a week, 5,200 Rand a year. But if you know where to put that, it's not actually 5.2. I can't do the maths right now. As you know, I can't count properly. But that's certainly a lot more than just 5.2. And once the compound interest
100%.
kicks in, it's like a rock covered in moss rolling down a steep hill. It compounds.
100%.
But no one understands that finds themselves in these situations.
I think one of the issues is if you do want to find the information, it's very complex. It's very dull. It's very boring. There's too many big words. But we're in an age now where you've got AI. So we've got to have a learning spirit to want to learn certain things. We now have people on TikTok that break these things down. So I think there's two components. It can be dull. It can be boring. There's too many big words. But also we have to have a learning spirit to want to learn these things. So if we come from a family where we've never spoken about money, when do we break the cycle? Somebody in this list needs to say, I'm going to be the first one to do it. So in my family, thankfully, my mom was the first person to do it, to say, we need to talk about savings. Do you have a funeral policy? Do you have medical aid? To have those awkward conversations, because it has to start somewhere. And it's not going to be sexy and fun and great, but it's such an important component. Money is so important, but we don't want to have conversations.
Yeah, we don't have it. It happened to a friend of mine. I keep blaming friends. These are real people, I promise. It's not me speaking vicariously through made-up friends. They really are real people. I had bought himself, I won't say the brand of vehicle, let's say a very high-end German car, and got the car, was able to balloon payment this thing into a coma. He had no business driving this car. And he was fine for a while. You could pay for the fuel, you could pay for the cheapest insurance you could find, until he had to repair the vehicle. And suddenly you realize he didn't have the money to pay for the car. And he actually did his maths in reverse. And if he'd put away no more than 6% of the car's value, he would have been able to repair the car up to its standard. On that point, why don't we talk about savings and things at school? Not in the way, I know we all did accounting, I attempted to do maths, that didn't go very well, but this should actually be a subject. Savings, all on its own, should be a subject.
It definitely should be, but I also wonder, are we not putting too much responsibility on the education system?
Sure.
When do families play that role? When do our uncles and our aunts? But I do agree, I do think school needs to do more. I mean, if we're going to have subjects like LO, there needs to be a conversation around money and finances. When you get to university, this is what you expected. You'll be getting an allowance. But I also think there needs to be a little bit of some blame on our families to say, if you guys don't talk about saving and investing and you've made all these mistakes and you keep quiet, you don't share those lessons with me as your son or your daughter. So when I then have the opportunity to start earning, I know nothing as well. And even when I'm going through a difficult time, you've not created the space for us to have a conversation, for me to say, I'm actually in debt.
You're actually in debt. And that's a difficult word, the dirty D word. A lot of people don't want to do that.
100%.
Before I ask you to tell us where to go to find more info, a young person who's maybe into gambling, when does it start becoming a problem? Because I don't want to sound like I'm poo-pooing all over gambling. I think anything in moderation can be fun. It can be entertaining. I'm just wondering if you have a view, especially for young people maybe, when does the gambling start becoming a problem?
Yeah, that's a powerful question. I think the moment you start using money that's meant for basics on gambling, it starts to become a problem.
We're talking like food.
We're talking about food. We're talking about accommodation. I mean, we know young interns that get a stipend, as an example, and money meant to get to work is being used for gambling. So the moment you start to use money meant for basics on gambling, that's already the first problem. The second problem is when it now starts to become a habit. You can't go to sleep seeing if your soccer team has won or not, or you need to play a few games. It becomes a problem. When it starts to become a secret and nobody knows and you're trying to hide it, it becomes a little bit of a problem. And we sometimes forget that gambling can actually lead to being an addiction. It can be so dangerous. Yes, on the front of it, I'm just betting on my favorite team, but it can actually spiral out of control. So the moment you start using money for basics, the moment it starts becoming a secret, the moment you can't sleep, the moment it starts to cause even some emotional distress where you're saying, I've lost this amount of money that's meant for transport. How am I going to get to work? That's when you know it's already a problem.
I'm just thinking about any kind of addiction. And I mean, I'm certainly no gambling addiction expert, but the moment you're hiding it from loved ones or friends, you know something isn't right
100%.
And you're still doing it behind someone else's back. Now, this is the important part I want to make sure we understand. Tell me about this program you've got in place, I think you call it a platform that you've got. Is it open to anyone? What do we do? Where do we send people?
Yeah, so the platform is open to young people between the ages of 18 and 35. And thanks to Sanlam Foundation, we're then able to give people free access. So there is no cost, there is no marketing of products and services. It's literally us saying to young people, have the money spirit, have the learning spirit, want to come and learn a bit about your money. And they can find us on social media. So if you go to TikTok, if you go to Instagram, if you go to LinkedIn, you will find all of our links that will then take you to our platform. Or you can just Google Blackbullion SA or Moneyposa SA and you'll find all the links, but absolutely free. And like I said earlier on, we just want to help young people to build a relationship with their money.
And that relationship's going to last you a long time. If you're not careful, it can run out on you very quickly.
100%.
That's the quickest breakup you're ever going to go through as a youngster. It's a closing tradition on the show. I know you've given us the website, which we'll put on the bottom of the screen, I'm sure, as best we can, or at least in the notes for the show. I always like to ask, is there something that I should have asked you that I didn't, or perhaps a closing thought for anyone watching now? The platform's all yours for the moment.
Yeah, I'd love to actually switch it if you don't mind.
All yours.
And throw a little something into it. I wonder, a question that I have for you, because I think it will relate really great to our younger audience. If you had a money message for your younger self, what do you think that message would be?
That's a good question, because if I could go back to 18-year-old Gareth, where you're earning a little bit of money, I definitely would have had to get a better understanding of what a savings account actually is, not just keeping money separate, but a savings account or investments that don't require that much money. And I didn't know that then. I always thought savings is for rich people. It's not. It's not. You've illustrated this. The other one, and I did get myself into a little bit of trouble in my very young years, is a credit card. It wasn't gambling, I realized that, but I had no idea just how destructive a credit card could be in the wrong hands. I didn't even realize, and I'm happy to admit this embarrassingly, I thought it was my money. And then when I got my first statement saying, well, here you go, Gareth, you owe us this money, I had to go to the bank and ask them to explain to me, like an idiot, that I've actually used their money. And that set me back a few months. So that couple of grand wasn't mine for the next 6 months while I paid that back. If someone had just taught me that basic, it would have made a very big difference in my early 20s and late teens.
Beautiful. And I think that's a beautiful way to wrap it. I think at the end of the day, you are the author of your money story and you decide what happens with it.
Yeah, you got the pen, you get to write it, you get to fill the pages. Tshepo Kgapane, what a pleasure having you with us from Blackbullion SA. As he said, go and find them on all the socials, the webs, everything, anywhere. You can't miss them at all for that free advice, and just have the conversation, especially for the 18 to 35-year-olds. And thank you for watching. Have you dealt with gambling? Are you aware of gambling? It's a thing that, of course, you're worried about. What I'll make sure the team does as well is for any sort of responsible gambling programs. I didn't want to spend too much time on it here. We'll leave a couple of those resources for you at the bottom of this episode. Go look for it down in the comments and the notes. I'll ask the online team very nicely to put that there. Thank you for watching. I'm Gareth Edwards, back again next week for Making Sense.